All right. It seems like Louisville is trying to do all it can to get their recruits in top a 5-star, I should say, rather, coming to Louisville. And more important than that, is Satterfield doing everything he can to keep his job? That's the case. Some of the recruits heading Louisville's way, but how it might change the game as we continue to talk about this NIL conversation with AJ Black from Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper. Super excited to have you guys today listening in on the show. We have AJ Black here from Locked On Boston College, who's going to give us a nice little tour around the recruiting world. As we all know, I don't touch on it much, but it's always good to have the experts here. AJ, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Candace, it's great to be back on. Glad to talk some more ACC sports and ACC recruiting.
No. Guys, it is for the past week. There's been a lot of good recruiting talk out there and want to get right into these things. Scott Satterfield secured the bag when he got Reuben Owens II coming to Louisville, the running back who decided to take his talents to Kentucky. And it's really crazy because as much as we talk about ACC football, Louisville I don't want to say almost always, but a lot of times more than not, they don't really get put in the conversation as much as they should. But this 5-star recruit is a huge get for the Cardinals. And I would love to just get your immediate thoughts on the Cardinals nabbing him, AJ.
So Reuben Owens, he's a name, if you're into the recruiting circles, it's a big deal. Like this guy he had 43 offers across the country.
Wow.
You know, Alabama, Texas A&M, I think, and Texas were, he's a College Station kid. He's from Texas. It just seemed like a done deal that he'd stay in the Lone Star State. And then he goes on an official visit to Louisville last weekend. He gets wined and dined. And I'll get into a little bit about what that looks like in just a second.
Yeah.
Boom. 2 days later, he signs. And I think the bigger deal here, Candace, is this is a big deal, right? 5-star recruit.
Yeah.
I think Louisville has never had one ever. Or maybe one in their entire history, if I'm correct. The guys that they've had that have been successful have not been blue chip recruits. This puts them at a whole other level. This changes the game for them. And
Absolutely.
It's not just Owens. There's 4 other recruits in this class right now that are in the top 150. Those are the elite. Those are the almost blue chippers, and they have 4 of them. That is more than they've had in the last 13 years combined.
Yeah, which is crazy. And I want to get into a quote real quick that Reuben said, quote, "I've always been a trailblazer and aimed to create my own legacy on the road less traveled in hopes of inspiring others to believe in themselves. It was the driving force in making this life-changing decision to where I'll spend the next 3 to 4 years of my life," end quote. To me, when you're like, oh, I want to carve out my own path and like do something out of the box, especially a kid from Texas going to Louisville, that's pretty out of the box. That's pretty much doing something completely different and not what people do. But I mean, I'm not gonna say that. I don't know how to put this nicely. Like, is it an act of like Louisville? Just it's a head scratcher when you think about guys and where they want to go play football and be one of the top recruits of the country. It's like I'm carving my own path, being a trailblazer. Is it because you know that's gonna take a lot of work over in Louisville? Like, what is it?
It's everything in the last year that we've been talking about, and Louisville's been harnessed. To their credit, they've harnessed it. I'm not going to pro clutch here and say that what they're doing is wrong because it's not. But for instance, last weekend, I said they had their big official visit weekend. That's the one official visit that each player gets to come to campus. They can wine and dine him. For a school like Boston College, they go to Fenway Park. They have on the Jumbotron welcome recruits. They get to stand on the diamond. They go to Davio's Steakhouse. They
eat chop suey. No,
eat chop suey. They do all the night, that kind of stuff. Here's what Louisville did. They brought them to the stadium. They filled the car with over a dozen like really, really nice custom cars. They brought out a private jet, and then they probably told them what the NIL deal they were going to be. And that's probably why Reuben Owens flew to Louisville. Oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to get paid. Sure, I'll go play for Louisville. And again, I am not judging at all. This is, your colleges have to start playing this game, right? If you want to be a big dog, you can do it Dabo's way and try to be, try to have like your nose clean of that stuff, or you do what the other teams are doing. That Texas A&M's doing it. USC's doing it. All these other programs are doing it. And if Louisville's like, we have the donors to do it, and clearly they do, then why not? It doesn't hurt them to do it, and they're doing it, and they're doing it successfully, and it's going to help that program.
100%. And to stay on the Louisville point, I do want to touch on Clemson here down the line. But for Satterfield, knowing what kind of arms race he's playing in the Atlantic Division, like how tough it's going to be, moving forward, now that we know that Clemson's a little bit vulnerable. So it's not going to be Clemson year after year after year. It's going to be fighting for a spot. NC State's doing well. You've got Boston College moving up the ranks. You've got, your Florida State's trying to get back in the ball game. How competitive did he know he needed to be? And in my thinking, I feel like it was like, let me do everything I can financially. So then try to maybe put those X's and O's in place.
Yeah, I mean, the NIL collective they have at Louisville has to be buying him another year, because Malik Cunningham is good enough to make Louisville 6-6. And if you're 6-6 with what looks like it's going to be a top 10 class next year for Louisville, they're going to give him another year. You know what I mean? Like, so they've got enough talent to make a bowl, and then they're going to roll the dice with a recruiting class that Louisville has never seen before. That's going to energize the fan base, which in then turn will get the NIL pools going again. It's a good cycle. If you're a Louisville Cardinal fan right now, you have to feel really good where this program is going. It doesn't even matter what's going on in the field. You're getting all this talent. They got a 4-star quarterback coming in the Elite 11 quarterback competition. That's a big deal. They've got, more 4 stars. I mean, they got Reuben Owens trying to bring a 4-star wide receiver in. So they're working all this stuff, and that's going to build a lot of momentum in a program that, honestly, as you said, has been kind of stale for a couple of years under Scott Satterfield. A nice solid season, but with some recruiting after it could put Louisville in a nice spot heading into 2023.
Absolutely. For those who don't know Owen's stats here, he rushed for over 4,500 yards and 68 touchdowns, including nearly 3,000 yards and 46 scores last season. And he is going to be joined by the number 2 overall receiver prospect, DeAndre Moore Jr. out of California in that 2023 class. And to me, you've been in the recruiting world long enough, you kind of know how it goes. It's almost like signs still delivered in terms of keeping Satterfield, because you want to keep these recruits, these high-level recruits, NIL deal level, recruits happy. But if the money is staying the same, right? We know this is a new ball game, right? Does it really matter what coach you have if those checks are still going to be cash? I'm wondering.
Yeah, probably not, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
like, that's my thought process. Like, I think when I look at like the Jordan Addisons going from Pitt to USC and, literally changing gears after having someone like a coach in RTC who probably took you under your wing really well, it's unique to see how pretty much the check is the ruler. I mean, and I'm low key, it always has been, but we talk about building relationships and wanting to go and having kids recruit themselves and want to take their friends with them. And that all sounds well and good, but if the check ain't cashing right, forget all of that. So I think Louisville's playing it right. If you're going to play the game, you might as well play to win.
And the other thought too is if things don't work out with Satterfield, say he doesn't coach well, they're 5-7. They could always do what Miami just did and just go out, and they've got the money. They're showing they got the money for it. Buy the next big coach. Why not? Right? Like, you get all you bought all the good players too, so buy a good coach. I mean, again, I'm not judging. That's the way they're going to build the program. Some schools are going to do it. So maybe there's, Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina, who's been really doing well, or some other big name out there that could do it at that level. And you just get rid of, as you kind of said, the coach doesn't really matter. You just plug out Satterfield.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that ultimately it's a matter of how you kind of bring the person in, and then make it roll and keep it rolling.
Yep.
So we're going to sit here and talk a little bit more about NIL deals and all of the like. But first, I want to remind you guys that how our friends at Built are always coming out with amazing new flavors. Well, this time, Built has truly outdone themselves with their new mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built is introducing a new mud pie flavor in both mud pie bar and mud pie puffs. You know the puffs, the best part of it all. I always tell you guys about how good the puffs are, everybody, and they make sure that you're eating good every single time, that you're getting a delicious treat, 100% covered in chocolate for only 150 calories and 8 grams of sugar. Mud pie bars and puffs are available at built.com right now, and they're going fast because they are delicious. Like all Built bars, they again are covered in 100% real chocolate, which means they're healthy and they're tasty. You're going to love this new mud pie Built bar and Built puff, whether you need a snack for a workout, a late night treat, or you just want to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar and tastes better than a candy bar. Chocolate mousse, whipped cream, and cookies and cream crumbles. Stop drooling. Get to built.com. Order right now. Use Mud Pie bars and you won't regret it. Go to built.com using promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order. Rocking and rolling here with AJ Black of Locked On Boston College, and we're talking recruiting here. And as someone who is an expert in the field, would love to get your thoughts in terms of how you feel like, just to give a more broader point about AL deals and how Louisville's playing it right in terms of it being a arms race about who can give the money the quickest. And we look at other sides of people who are trying to do it more still under the table, like a Clemson, and have a more quote unquote well-oiled machine. What do you think you would prefer, especially as you look at like Boston College and how they're navigating the space?
I think above the board is going to be the way to go at this point, right? Like it for fans that look at it and tisk everything that's going on, like just you got to get your blinders off and just realize this was all happening, behind the scenes anyways for years. Like you just didn't know about it, you'd hear about it because it was taboo. So now that you can put it out there, see what people are doing, there's nothing wrong with that. I like that as a possibility for the, like, at a school like Boston College, you're not going to get the kind of deals you're going to get at USC or Miami. But you know what? BC was never fighting for those kids anyways, right? And they're showing, a school like Boston College is showing with, car deals for Djokovic and Zay Flowers, their wide receiver, that like, we can still do it. We still have the ability to do that kind of thing. But the bigger programs, it really kind of just allows the truth to be out there. And as a college football fan, like once you get over the fact that you're seeing it so blatantly now, and yeah, I am not a big fan of the like using NIL deals to lure people into the transfer portal. I think that's gross. But I do think like this is a good thing. Like once we get used to it and get settled in, the players are getting paid again, which they absolutely should be.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to see in different schools are doing that. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then on the flip side of things, not only is Louisville trying to do big things with big recruits, but you also have Clemson, AJ Hoffler, for the 4-star recruit, decided to take his talents down to Death Valley. And I think it's another sign of Clemson still making sure that they're in the name of the game. And for me, I'm saying as much as I want NC State to win that Atlantic Division, potentially win the ACC, Clemson's saying it's not so fast. But it was unique about the situation, and I didn't know about this, and I'm learning more and more every day about this recruiting world, is Dabo Swinney saying, listen, if you commit to us, if you say you want us, or you're feeling like this is your choice to be, you can't take the rest of your trips. Yep. And personally, I only took 4 out of my 5 recruiting trips because I was not a huge traveler back then. In hindsight, I probably should have just gone and got all the free experiences. But, some people are like, listen, if you want to go with us, if you take a trip to us, don't, go anywhere else. Now, the school that he told AJ he couldn't, take the trip for was Carolina. And recently there's been some back and forth between North Carolina and Clemson and the arms race of getting some of the top recruits. What would be your thoughts around, just trying to be competitive in the ACC and preventing guys, or trying to really lure guys away from these other top schools in the conference?
So just to clarify a little bit, because that's a good point, and I think a lot of folks don't understand. And I will do a little primer here for folks that don't know and do know, right?
Sure.
There's 2 different types of visits a recruit can take, right? There's the unofficial visit that's on the recruit's dime. They can go check out a school, go meet the coaches, they can meet the players, go look at the facilities. They can do a million of those, right? Yeah. You can do unlimited as long as it's the right part of the calendar year. They can do that all the time. Now, as you said, you have 5 official visits as a recruit, and that is where a school can wine and dine you. which is weird for an 18-year-old, but that's what it is, right? Let's be real, right? But what's interesting, as you said, is Dabo has that policy. Did he actually come out and say that out loud? Or was it?
It was an understood rumor, well, not a
Okay.
rumor. It's understood
Yeah.
around the college football world.
So it's actually very common for coaches to do that. Jeff Hafley's the same way.
Okay.
Um, when you commit to Boston College, you have to cancel your other official visits, or they won't accept your commitment, your verbal commitment. And it actually came to fruition. There's a kind of an icky situation, kind of similar to what you were saying, where there's a local kid from Massachusetts. His name is Boubacar Traore. He's a defensive tackle from Catholic Memorial.
His name is what?
I'm probably butchering it. Boubacar, Boubacar, right?
Yeah, that's
Traore.
funny. Mhm.
And he's a 4-star defensive tackle. He was committed to BC,
Yeah.
went to Notre Dame,
Hmm.
and it just seemed like that was over, right? Like when you
Yeah.
BC loses a guy to Notre Dame, that usually means like whatever, the guy's gone.
Right.
Well, he was on he tweeted that he was on a visit about a week ago to BC, and that happens, right? He has teammates that are coming to BC. They might just be hanging out. That's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, BC releases the news that it wasn't an unofficial, that he was on an official visit, and he's committed to Notre Dame. That's a big deal because Notre Dame policy as Clemson, as Boston College. So it turned into almost a little hubbub there that will they pull his commitment because he was at Boston College. It's kind of blown over now, but it's something coaches really do kind of hold recruits to the feet to the fire. And like, I think a lot of college football coaches use it as collateral to kind of like be like, okay, we have the spot for you. We'd love to have you, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's usually that official visit that you have to cancel. So I'm not surprised Dabo does that. I honestly, I'm curious. Like I've covered BC recruiting through 3 coaches and all 3. So Frank Spaziani, Steve Dazio, and now Jeff Hafley, all 3 have the same policy. But I imagine, because I see it around the country, that there's other coaches that just let it go.
Yeah.
But I think Jeff Hafley is almost in the same ballpark as Dabo.
Yeah. I listen, I think that ultimately I get it. Like, you don't want to be out here getting winded down by multiple people. You never know what can happen because guys decommit all the time. So like once you're secure, you stay at home, all that good stuff. But I absolutely see a Mac Brown, an old school coach, being like, yeah, once you say yes to me, you can't be going to get, sweet tooth and getting your ice cream from somebody else. I absolutely see that happening and that being the case. But with all that saying and all that breaking down, which I appreciate you letting folks know, it's still, if you never looked at it as a business before, damn it if you don't look at it now, because it's all transactional, right? What can you do for me, in these 3 to 4 years that you're here? And if so, you can do said thing for me, great. But don't try and like get offers or looked at or have conversations with anybody else. Don't get text messages from anybody else. Like, do not get discouraged or disinterested based on any type of lure, which we go back to the conversation of NIL. Everything looks juicy, right? And I think one thing, I'm sure you had these conversations about recruits, and in high school, to me, that's the biggest part of it that's missing now. Like when you used to have these coaches going out, going to these high school games and really being like, okay, I see the potential in him and all of these good things. And you get like hoisted up to be, XYZ person. Now it's just who can write the check the fastest, who can write the biggest, you're more so almost scouting for sponsors, right? Or boosters, or who can bring in the most money to your program so you can lure in these 4 to 5-star recruits.
So I think that's a good point. And I think that that's where the opportunity for other schools like Wake Forest, UVA, where there isn't unlimited NIL money out there, right? You can't just pay 85 guys to play on your team, or you can, but it won't be much. Schools like UVA, Wake Forest, Duke, and UNC, even UNC, right? Like all are good academic schools, and you can still sell that to recruits, right? You can I cover recruiting for BC Bulletin, and I talk to every commitment, and literally every single one of me staff has talked to them about. They could have a future in the NFL, and Jaffley has had experience, so he can get there. Or if it doesn't work, I can still sit back on a Boston College education.
Yeah.
The NIL world is not going to shut schools out that are those schools that are not Clemson, that are not Louisville, not Florida State, those kids are still going to be able, you're going to still find the kids at camps, at high schools that, and many of them are going to turn out to be really good. Zay Flowers had like one offer out of college, high school, and look where he's going to be, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to find that's still going to exist. I think everyone is just so reactive right now because you see the big names doing it. But underneath that is a vast majority that aren't touching this NIL stuff.
Yeah, it really is amazing and fascinating to me how many people just look over the fact that there's so many good guys out here that are just so focused on ball. Like they don't care about that, all the extra stuff. Like it is nice, but they're also probably guys that are having a lot of good under the table. We're just doing what we got to do. Like I'm not making a big showcase about it. You see like the Ohio State players of the world where they're just like, oh, I could choose a different car every week. And like, I wouldn't want to be flashy. Like I'm just, if I'm a good player, if I was a 4 to 5 star recruit or I'm a parent of a 4 to 5 star recruit, I'm just like, hey, take your money, make an investment, start a trust, do what you got to do. Like I'm not knocking away, and I don't want you to not have a good salary out of this. But also, you don't have to show everybody because there are still like sharks out here. There are guys who are still trying to take advantage. And you're 17, 18 years old. You don't know better. Like you just doing whatever comes first to mind and whatever has the shiniest new toy or whatever that. But like you got to be smarter about it. I think some people aren't moving the smartest, in my opinion.
It's probably just a smaller deal, and this is not a knock on the company itself, and I'm not going to get into that. But it reminds me when the NIL stuff first opened last year, and like literally every football player, or not even football player, it seems like every college athlete became a barstool athlete.
Yes. Oh my
gosh. What
the
hell did that even mean? Did they get paid? Did they have to do anything? Like I think they all just signed on to it, and it didn't seem like it went anywhere. And again, not a knock on that, because if you're getting paid, go for it. But like, it just seemed like, as you said, like all this like murky stuff that you didn't know about, like that seemed really murky because nothing ever happened with it other than them putting it in their Twitter profiles.
Absolutely. And honestly, that was just free promo for Barstool, which that's probably what they wanted the entire time.
Right. Yep.
And listen, at the end of the day, slow money still makes money. So like, don't go for the first flashiest thing. And sometimes the long ball is always going to be most beneficial in the end. So it's very interesting. Recruiting world has just gotten crazier. And I know you've been covering it for so long, but do you feel like on one side, yes, I'm super excited that these guys get this opportunity and money, or do you feel like it's become even more challenging to try and nab the best players for your university?
So just from my Boston College lens, and again, there's many schools that are in this ballpark in the same predicament. I don't feel like it's changed at all. Like if you look, like the players that BC would have landed 3 years ago when it wasn't NIL laden across the world are now no different than we're getting right now, right? And I think most programs are the same way, other than Louisville, who's figured out how to do it. Like most. It feels very similar. Like the conversations with the kids are the same. And not like when I talk to recruits, they don't bring up NIL. They don't ever talk about it. They have their options and stuff like that, but then at this point they don't bring that up at schools like Boston College. I'm sure if you talk to like Arch Manning, he might say that there's some reasons that he's got it right. But I think for schools like that, like it just feels the same. And honestly, like big picture, right? That the world of college football has changed, but really has it? Like other than like it being public, the big programs are still out recruiting the smaller programs. The big programs like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma, they're still going to be the top-notch schools. It hasn't really adjusted much of anything.
Yeah. I would agree there, definitely. But it's so crazy how, 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we were having all this uproar about Nick Saban saying, like, we need a level playing field and it's all out of whack. And now everyone's just like, whatever. Nobody's even addressing that part. Nobody's addressing that elephant. We're all just like, yeah, he just had a little tantrum and now we're just going back to normal and everyone's fine. And, Dabo comes out with his weekly, this is all just a mess and, just ruining college football. And it's just like, back to normal, right? So I'm honestly really interested for ACC kickoff. I think it's going to be interesting to see how these guys address these issues now that it's not so novel and they're not having like, oh, let's keep the main thing. If I had a shot for every time a player had to say, keep the main thing, I would have been a wasted girl down there in Charlotte because that's just, they were drilled to say football first, blah, blah, blah. But like, we all know at the end of the day, DJU was over here talking about Dr. Pepper commercials and what have you, but I bet he wished he kept the main thing the main thing. And I hope he keeps the main thing the main thing this season, because he's certainly going to need it, because he's going to have a lot of people definitely with a target on their back. I think Clemson's still very much a contender, but a lot of people, I think a lot of schools, as we're seeing, are trying to get in that top spot. And it's going to be I think the ACC is going to be very competitive this football season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Candace.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But it's always a pleasure to have you, AJ, especially talking recruiting. I'm definitely going to have to give you more back here. There it is. Definitely going to have to get you back for more conversation around it as we head into the off season. We don't have to do Mount Rushmore talks. We can just do, fun stuff, realistic things. But, can you please remind these folks of where they can find you, follow your work?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me at Locked On BC. I'm the host. I'm doing it 3 days a week right now during the summer. But if you like my recruiting talk now, I've been talking recruiting. My episode for today is going to be about a new commitment from Texas. BC's been hitting a lot down there. Been talking a lot about that. And I'm also the editor and publisher of BC Bulletin, part of the Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation Network.
No doubt about it. A few housekeeping notes. There's one live NBA draft show that is not enough for Locked On. So they're going to give you an entire NBA channel going live on NBA draft night. So if you have a favorite NBA team, make sure you subscribe right now to their Locked On YouTube channel so you get notified when they go live on NBA draft night, which is coming up. We know our top player, Paolo Banchero, and the rest of the Duke starting five really going to get their opportunity to get their name called. So we'll definitely talk about that and the NBA mock draft. If you have not checked that out, the first picks of the Ultimate NBA mock draft have been made. So search now for the Ultimate NBA mock draft and get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, the draft experts of Locked On NBA Big Board for you. They'll have 5 episodes of Ultimate NBA mock drafts already underway. So make the NBA mock draft your second listen today. For AJ Black and Candace Cooper, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Until next time.